Okay, class. This next week we're going to start a month-long poetry unit that takes you through the basics and the fundamentals of poetry, and gets us to where we're able to start answering multiple choice questions and writing essays with regard to poetry. Poetry is part of the hardest part of AP literature because it's completely vastly different than the types of poetry that you've done before. Even though the poems look similar, we're looking deeper and more in depth and more detail. I've already shared the document for you that I want you to download and then put in your own drive in your folders. And when you have it in your drive, what I want you to do is then make a copy of it. So if you're in your drive with your other documents, click on the document and then right click, and it's going to give you a bunch of different options. You cannot currently, like if you open it or preview it, you cannot make changes to it. So like we saw in class the last couple of days, with working with other Google Docs and Word documents and such, I want you to be able to make changes to the documents. So in this case, what you need to do is click on the Make a Copy, and it will actually create a new copy in here, and it says Copy of Fundamentals of, and then here if you just want to rename it so that you know it's yours, and it will be in the same folder, but then this one you can actually open and you can make changes to. Okay, unlike the original one that I had downloaded, especially like when we were looking at the study guide and stuff. Okay, so you have that. I highly suggest you take notes along the way on this. I'm going to start with a Prezi. The Prezi is only really going to cover the first 2/3 of the first page, and this is going to be like when I did the introduction to short stories and devices at the beginning of the year. This is going to be a series of like 3 or 4, possibly 5 videos, and then we will do a big quiz on it as we're starting poetry. So this is my Prezi called Sound Devices and Poetry. You can find it on Prezi, you know that. Okay, so starting at the beginning of the documents. The first thing we're going to look at is this idea of verse forms. Poetry is in a form called verse. When you look at fiction, when you look at short stories, those are called prose. When you look at poetry, that's called verse. There are 3 main aspects of verse. There's rhymed verse, blank verse, and free verse. These are just the basics. So when you're looking at a poem, and looking at the rhyme scheme, how you can tell what style of poem it is. So the first thing is rhymed verse. So verse with end rhyme. End rhyme means the words at the end of the lines rhyme, like when we're looking at Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and usually with a regular meter. Meter means a regular sound, a regular beat, regular intervals of syllables. Meter I'm going to cover more in depth in the spring, but that's what you need to know now, is the idea that it's a regular sound and a regular pattern. Okay, blank verse is lines of iambic pentameter without end rhyme. So the words do not rhyme at all. Okay, so you're going to look at your end words and they're not going to rhyme. Iambic pentameter, just for purposes now, because it's a part of meter that we will cover in spring, it's Shakespeare's favorite form to write in, and iambic pentameter means 10 syllables per line. Okay, so it's 10 syllables per line of unrhymed poetry. Okay, and the last one is free verse. Free verse does not have a regular pattern or meter and does not contain rhyme. So lines can be short, lines can be long, it can be in shapes, it can be in abstract things, and it's more of what we write now, because society has greatly changed and gone away from these strict forms of poetry. Okay, so on to the idea of the rhymes. The rhymes can be difficult. There are 3 main styles that we're going to look at, and each has like 2 or 3 different names to it. So it's difficult to keep them apart, but you need to know all of the names to them, because on the AP test they can trick you and call them other things. So it's important that you learn all of the names to begin with. So rhyme is a similarity or likeness of sound existing between 2 or more words. So existent likeness or similarity of sound. So we're looking at rhyme, we're looking at the sound of the words. Now on each of the next slides, I'm giving you a set of words down here at the bottom that show examples of rhyme. Now, even though as we pronounce these words, they don't sound like they rhyme, but it's similarity or likeness of sound. Okay, so it's important that you look at the similarities there. So we have fun and run, which is an obvious rhyme. Down and noon, that doesn't even sound anywhere close to a rhyme. And move and love, noticing that even though they look the same, they don't sound the same. Okay, so the first style we have is what we call perfect, true, or exact rhyme. Okay, in the handout I called it true and perfect, but it's also known as exact. Most of the time they're going to call it perfect rhyme. In class I will actually call it perfect, but you need to know the other two names for it as well. So it's the repetition of words that end with the same vowel and consonant sounds, preceded, as in comes before it, by a different consonant. Okay, so if we look at this first set of words, love and dove, the vowel and the consonant sound at the end, this one syllable, the OVE, is preceded by a different consonant. Okay, vowels, consonant. So looking at this, so if you look at love and dove, so the of is the same vowel and consonant sound. Okay, but the consonant that comes right before them is different. Okay, so this ending is exactly perfect, true, or exact. It's the idea that it's exactly the same sound. Okay, we have fun and run, which I had in the first slide. Homophones are also considered exact rhymes. So even though when we get down here to the last sets, blue and blue, they sound exactly the same. Remember, it's in sound, it's not in look. Okay, so even though these have different looks, the LEW versus the LUE, we're looking at the idea of the fact that they sound the same. Okay, even though the B's are the same, it still has, so it doesn't necessarily preceded by a different consonant. Homophones are perfect, true, and exact rhyme. So see, bite, bite, bite. Okay, dreary and weary fit into the idea of the same vowel with a different consonant. This has the DR and this has the W, but noting the idea that they sound perfectly exactly the same. Okay, the next one we have is near, off, or slant rhyme. This will more than likely be called slant or near rhyme. In class I will probably call it slant rhyme. It's the repetition of words that end with similar sounds but do not rhyme perfectly. So the sounds are similar, but they're not a perfect match. Okay, so if we look at this first one, down and noon, the ends here have the similar sound, but the whole syllable does not match. If the whole syllable matched, it would be considered a perfect rhyme. But since the whole syllable does not match, and it's just one consonant here that matches, it's similar sound and it's a slant rhyme, or it's a near rhyme. Soul and all. So we have the L's, and then in feathers and words, we have the S's. Now, if you look on the handout I gave you 4 lines from an Emily Dickinson poem, and it actually has the down and the noon there, so you can see that idea of what Dickinson does with her lines of poetry. Okay, the last one is what we call an I rhyme. So the rhyme is based on spelling, not on sound. So the sound doesn't matter, but the syllable itself is the same. So if we look at move and love, the oov and the of do not match in sound. Even though they look exactly the same, they're oov and of. So they sound different, but they look exactly the same. Now, if we had love and dove, it has the same oov sound, so that would be a perfect rhyme. Okay, we're looking for same spelling, not the same sound. That's an I rhyme, so it looks perfect to the eye, but not to the ear. Okay, wreath and death, wreath and death. So here we hear the E, and here we hear the A. So it looks exactly the same, but when you pronounce it, it doesn't sound the same. Okay? Comprehension check. I want you to write these words down. and I want you to put them in your notes. And I'm going to actually ask you answers for this in the video. I'm going to pronounce the words for you really quick, but I want you to write these in your notes or type them onto the handout. And then I want you to label them as either perfect, slant, or I rhyme. Number 1, play and day. Number 2, though and snow. Number 3, flute and toot. Number 4, sweep and deep. Number 5, food and good. Food and good. Now you can go and pause the video before I switch it. I'm not going to pause myself, but if you want to pause so you can type these in or write these down, that's good. Okay, so next we're going to look at this idea of end rhyme. So end rhyme is the rhyming of words at the end of lines. So it's the idea that the words at the very end of the rhyme of the lines rhyme. And this is where we get the rhyme scheme as well. So it's such a wonderful day, let's go outside and play. So the day and the play rhyme. We're not looking inside the lines, we're looking just at the end itself. Okay, internal rhyme is where the rhyming of words within a line. So it's within the line. So if we just look at this one line, that little mouse lives in my house. So what we're looking at here is we're not looking at successive lines of poetry. What instead we're looking at is within the line, we have words that rhyme. So that's the internal, so within the line of poetry. Now here, a little bigger, we have from The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I wondered weak and weary, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. So we're looking for internal. Each line has at least one internal rhyme. Okay, so here if we're looking at the first line, dreary and weary. So they rhyme together and they're within the same line of poetry. In the next line we have napping and tapping. Same idea here within the line of poetry. And then here we have rapping and rapping. It still goes with napping and tapping, and then we have the tapping down here. Okay? Now looking at this comprehension check and writing down these examples like you did with the previous examples in your notes or typing them on the document is preferred. I want you to identify the end rhyme or internal rhyming words for each set of lines. So when you're looking at the line itself, which so is it internal or is it end rhyme? And if it's internal, what words rhyme? If it's end rhyme, which words rhyme? And it can have both. Okay, that's very important to note. It can have both. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here because I don't have enough time to get through the whole next section. So make sure that you have this, make sure that you have your notes, make sure you did the 2 comprehension checks, and I will see you in class on Tuesday. Okay, have a good day.